This program is brought to you in part by the British School of Excellence and founder, Mr. Philip Sykes, building confidence, changing lives. Do you share our view that etiquette is a set of modern life skills that are essential for personal and professional success? Join us as an etiquette coach and change people's lives through the power of etiquette and manners.
The last few days have been really amazing. I had a trainer course from the British School of Etiquette.
And I must say it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made and one of the best investments I've made in my own training and development.
Now, words alone will not describe the transformation and the positive path that I have traveled with the British School of Etiquette.
I found I learned a lot from the lessons this time I came.
The last few days with the British School of Etiquette have been fantastic.
And what I've learned now is really beyond my expectations.
This is the most rewarding experience and the best investment I have made this year.
It was just great. I learned so much, and when I go back to Belgium I will incorporate a lot of it into my day-to-day life and business.
It's been absolutely wonderful for the whole week that we were here.
I feel like blowing a trumpet and tell people, come and do this school. This class is the best. This is the best school ever.
You should take it. It will change your life immediately.
I am now able to teach other people how to bring the best of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, BSc.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to our clients for their testimonials on the Train the Trainer program. Our exponential and global growth is so significant that we've evolved from the British School of Etiquette to the British School of Excellence, where we're investors in people. Let us invest in you and your career. Contact us to become an etiquette coach. Go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. Start your career and elevate your success today.
USA Global TV and Radio, in partnership with Dr. Jacalyn, LLC, present Amazon #1 best-selling author, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck is a certified life, career, and executive coach who teaches people how to listen at an elevated level through her courses and her books. Dr. Kerbeck teaches her clients how to open their hearts and express themselves through their creative genius. In her children's book series, The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, The Listening Mentor, Dr. Kerbeck teaches children and their families how to listen at an elevated level. Dr. Kerbeck has worked with clients across the world to guide them in how to express themselves and communicate at a highly effective level. Join our team of elevated listeners so you can listen without judgment, without providing a solution, without interruption, and without stealing the stage. To order your books today, go to drjacalyn.com or Amazon.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like The Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome back. Rod Laughlin here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, because the USA TV and Radio Network, in participation with the E360 network, is truly a worldwide network. We started a program a couple weeks ago with regard to what are the trends in health and wellness, primarily in the wellness industry, that we're going to end up 2023 with and begin 2024. And we flew over, dropping these little tidbits of information from about 30,000 feet, but it was very little information. Well, we're at that point in time now where we're going to dive down to the 200-foot level and actually explore what some of these things are. So let me bring up my computer real quick and get that up there. There we go. Okay. And okay. So, disclaimer, I'm a researcher. I'm not a doctor, never been associated with the pharmaceutical industry. I just fell in love with chemistry many, many years ago, sophomore in high school. Absolutely fell in love with it. I decided I'm going to get a degree in it, and I did. Unfortunately, I also got an invitation to Vietnam, so I never got a chance to become a chemist. But things happen for a reason. Nowadays, primarily thanks to my wife's breast cancer that she had coming up now in 10 years, I took a path of, well, let me see what I can do from a research perspective to help her with her side effects from chemotherapy. And all of a sudden, I found myself back in the world of chemistry. And from that, it kind of grew from that into longevity, because I'm getting old. I want to know what's going on. So wrote a couple books, did a few more things. And now I find my real passion is talking about what I'm finding at the cellular level in the body, but not just from a chemical perspective, but what are those chemicals doing? They cause something to happen. So if you look at a cause and effect relationship, you actually can do something. You treat the cause, you can fix a problem, generally speaking. But if you're treating symptoms, you'll always be treating symptoms, and you're putting Band-Aids on everything accordingly. Our health and our wellness, I believe, is our own responsibility. It's not our doctor, it's not our parents, whatever. If you're over 18, it's your responsibility. And as always, with the USA Global TV and Radio Network and the E360 TV network, this presentation is primarily for education, awareness, education, so that when you go to your doctor, you can say, hey, doc, what about this? I saw something on this the other day. Is this something that can help me? But at least it gives you a place to start looking. Now, we usually talk about health and wellness as a combination. Health deals really with a certain aspect of things, but wellness is the act of practicing those daily health habits. And things change. What we did back at the beginning of the century, 2000, 2001, with the Y2K and all the rest of that stuff going on, we're not doing the same things today. We just had a pandemic. Some places in the world, I think they still have one, but we're not doing the same things. That's the wellness aspect of it. And wellness is constantly changing. It's our choices, it's our intentions, the actions that we take. So as we look at these things, that's what's going on, and that's what we need to look at. So with regard to the hot topics and trends that we should be aware of, we left last week with a skin fast, trying to take everything off our skin, let things kind of just be natural for a while. Well, there's also a thing called the dopamine fast. And you're trying to kind of calm down, just, be the ball, as they had on a TV show way back, or movie. Just you're relaxing. And so you're trying to minimize as much stuff in your life that just cranks you up. So along with a dopamine, you're trying to reduce that level of intensity in the brain by fasting, getting away from it, abstaining from it. Part of that can be a digital defast. Okay, say I take my phone today and I'm saying, nope, I'm just going to take 5 hours off, 10 hours off. I'm not going to use it tonight. I'm not going to use it over the weekend. No Facebook, no whatever, just whatever may happen to be. Obviously, if somebody calls in with an emergency phone call, you can see who's calling. If it's mom or dad or one of your kids, you obviously need to, or your boss. But minimize that level of access. Some people, I turn mine off every night when I go to bed. I do not want phone calls in the middle of the night. There's another phone that we have in the room that we can be reached at, but I just kind of like to slow those things down. And there are a lot of addicting technologies out there. And one may be gaming, and maybe something else. But look at what you're spending your time on. What are those eyeballs concentrating on? And reduce it. Maybe cut down 2 hours of social media to 1. Maybe cut it down to 15 minutes. You're checking things out. You're spending 5 hours a day on TV. Maybe you only need an hour, hour and a half. Pick that one show you just can't live without, and just gradually move away from everything. But by doing this, it calms the brain, and it just allows you to feel a lot better, allows your body not to be overdosed with everything. And you can also add other things to it, whether it be sex or food or work or exercise. Sometimes you're going to do a dopamine fast. Well, let me just kind of do a 1 meal a day for my food. Maybe I'll just walk a little bit instead of going to the gym. There are things you can do where you combine things together. So it's just not just only social media you're avoiding. Maybe it's a little bit of something else too. The dopamine fast allows you to really and truly reduce, your levels of sugar. That's one of those things that pop up in the brain. But when we have low levels of protein, it also affects our dopamine production. So we might be thinking, okay, well, I'm going to go on a fast, avoid these things over here that have sugar. Well, I also probably need to crank up my protein just a little bit so that I'm getting that right level of balance. If I have sleep deprivation, if I'm obese, if I have an issue with drugs, if I'm taking in more saturated fats, if I'm not managing my stress, there's a lot of things out there that's affecting our brain. And if I can take and reduce my dopamine a little bit, I can really and truly feel better, look better, and produce and perform better. If you're continually under stress, you're burned out on what's going on with your relationship, your job, other situations in life, well, maybe a dopamine fast is something that we really should consider. Medical robots. We know they exist right now. I know that you have people maybe in Boston operating on somebody in San Francisco. They're used primarily to assist surgical techniques. Some of the more common ones are bariatric, knee, hip, and ortho replacements. But it depends on a lot of things as to, are they fairly standard? Can the lasers get in there and get everything aligned to the right proportions that you have? And it really truly standardizes everything. There is some risks associated with where in the body are they operating. It can add to the infection level a little bit. There have been some reported cases of nerve damage, but this technology, it's been around for a while, but like everything else, it's continually evolving. It's becoming more automated. If you take a look at the car industry, 40 years ago, everything was almost manual. You look at it nowadays, it's almost all robots. So things change. And as we're looking at our jobs, a lot of automatic, what we call AI, artificial intelligence, is coming in there using robots in order to replace things. But with automation, you have production increases, you have accuracy improvements, but you also have a job issue that may or may not go away, particularly go away in the area that you're in, but it may pick up new jobs in the support of those automation advances. What's the reality? Robots today are really assisting the surgeons. It's about 2% overall. It's excellent in any kind of rehab facility. You find a lot of robots being used. Particularly, you have somebody with, let's say you're a nurse and you're trying to help somebody up from a bed. If you had a robot that could come over and actually assist you getting that person out of bed, getting them out of a chair, getting them standing up, helping them along. So that is a major area where a robot is probably preferred, because it's going to minimize the damage to your body if you happen to be working there. If you're in an area with hazardous materials, chemicals, that may be an area where instead of you having to dress up in like going on the moon, the robot might be a safer, more advantageous thing to have. So there really and truly are some things today that the robots can help us with. Mental health. This topic seems to go up and down, up and down, up and down if you look at the trends of it over time. I think the last pandemic that we had really and truly restricted the in-person visits to the doctors. And as a result, you have maybe this person can go in there for that cancer treatment or this diagnostic treatment or something else. Now you start getting a little bit of depressed anxiety, our mental health issues rise up. We're not having somebody able to sit there and look at our body reactions to what's going on. We try to take care of that with a virtual doctor where they're looking on a camera so they can kind of see what's going on, but it's not really the same thing as looking at you eyeball to eyeball. And so you're finding that many people that are needing help are not necessarily getting the help they're needing. I think that's starting to change now. More and more doctors that I go around, I'm finding no more need for a mask, no more need for a lot of other things. I can generally get in pretty quickly. The whole approach seems to be changing. There will be some people who, for personal reasons, wear their mask, but the nurses, the doctors, and everything else, most of the places I've been, that's no longer in vogue. But they're also shifting the mental health to more of a whole being approach, not just what's wrong up here, but is it affecting some other aspect of the body? We're also seeing more emphasis from corporations, from businesses on saying, if I can keep and help somebody with mental health address the issues that they may have, maybe it's a stress reduction program, maybe it's, some other relational issue that can be taken care of. There are a lot of ways of addressing these things, and the awareness is now coming more from the business end of things, because that's the people that work for them. If they're not there, they're not performing well, then the business is not going to do well. Cold water therapy. I'm a hot weather person. I like it at night, 84 degrees. It's just, that's my kind of way of doing things. And I really didn't, I see people in cold water. I say, yeah, that's fine. That's more. But in reality, I used to, several times a week, I would go to what they call a spa, a mineral therapy in Germany. I lived in Stuttgart for a couple of years at the end of the 90s. And they have 212 degree saunas. I mean, not like the 160 degree ones we have here in the States. And I'd go in for a half hour, 45 minutes or so, and I would really and truly enjoy my sauna. Well, over a period of months, I found that if I gradually adapted and went into the cold water therapy, and this is where I could immerse myself my entire body, whether it's in a big swimming pool where the temperature's 60, 65 degrees, or whether it's in a small communal bath, maybe 10, 15 people in there, I could immerse myself in, and generally 42 degrees is probably the lowest that I could spend 3 or 4 minutes in, but 45 to 55 degrees, I would come out of a really hot sauna, go into what they call a Niepenlagen, where I would walk down one side, it would be up above my knees with hot water, really hot water, and then I'd step over into the cold water, and I'd walk down that side 10, 15 feet, walk over the edge, and I would adjust my feet. My feet are very, very sensitive to cold, but if I did this adjustment cycle, hot to cold, hot to cold, hot to cold, 3 or 4 or 5 times, I could go over to the cold water, 42 degrees, go down the steps, get in, and submerge myself completely. My biggest problem is getting my toes in the water. But the cold water therapy really and truly worked. Today, what we're looking at in the United States, yes, you can have a total immersion in cold water, and it doesn't have to be 42 degrees. It can be certainly much higher than that. We have cold water showers, but just like I mentioned with the Niepenlagen, they have a contrast where maybe that shower is 50 degrees for 30 seconds, and then you turn it over and now it's 100 degrees. But the contrast they're finding adds a lot of value. I know that I could go in that cold water dip for 3 or 4 minutes, and it's like a light switch goes on. I am, as badly as I felt, as fatigued as I felt coming out of that sauna and sweating for an hour, almost an hour, half hour to 40 minutes. I come out 2, 3, 4 minutes in the cold dip. I'm back in the next sauna. I do that 3, 4, 5 times a night. And it's just like a light switch. Hey, I'm a brand new person. It's amazing what goes on. Well, here in the States, they use it for muscle soreness. It's definitely great for reducing stress and improving the mood. I can absolutely guarantee you that. The cold water therapy also regulates your nervous system because it attacks, or doesn't attack, it affects instantly your vagus nerve with that cold water. Uh, there are some psychiatrists are using it to treat depression and anxiety. Now that cold water dip may not be but 69 degrees, but it's still enough to get into the body and cause a problem. Now, if you notice, if you're cold and you reach out there and you grab a hold of your shoulders and your chest, because that's the areas where you're cold, well, that's also the areas where you have brown fat. And that brown fat is deep inside, but metabolically, if you can burn that brown fat, you're really doing well. I mean, the fat we see on the outside, the stuff that we can pinch and squeeze, that's the white fat, and we want to get rid of that too. But that brown fat is something that really helps crank up our metabolic system to help burn that white fat. And as a result, we can lose not only fat, but we can lose some weight. Mushrooms. I'm going to say last 30 years, there hasn't been a week I haven't had mushrooms. There may have been one, but I have mushrooms almost 7 days a week. It's just one of those things that's part of my daily routine. I have several that I like more than others. I have not tried all of them, but just since 2020, there's been almost a 10% increase in mushrooms, and the continual forecast is still at that 9.5, 10% level, increasing beyond 2024. And as a result, we're seeing a mushroom shortage in the United States. Now, you may be able to get your white mushrooms, your button mushrooms, your shiitakes, whatever your standard is at the store. But there are some places where there's difficulty meeting the demand. The oyster mushroom is one that has the highest demand, and is also the one that's, supply and demand. It's not being met. Little trivia: Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, mushroom capital of the world. And by the world, I mean almost literally half of all the mushrooms that go out to worldwide destinations come from Pennsylvania. Even the mushroom decor, the mushroom-centric decor that was here decades ago, people are starting to see that increase again. For whatever reason, that's an old trend coming back again. A lot of things with mushrooms. The psilocybin therapy for mental health, blood pressure, diabetes, immune system disorders. If you are not on mushrooms and you're on some kind of medicine for diabetes or for blood pressure or for some other aspect, make sure you talk to your doctor or your pharmacist about which mushrooms you need to stay away from. And it's a serious thing because they can have some major effects on the medicines you're taking. They are almost like a medicine themselves, and it's like giving you two medicines. Boom, one's going to counteract the other one. You're not getting as much or too much of help from that one. The one area, let's see if it's on this next slide. Yes. It's really used to treat a lot of infections, a lot of pulmonary disease. But one area that I find that it's super helpful with is treating cancers. There's one particular one out there. I think it's called myshroom.com. Anyway, they have taken the best of the best of the best of a particular kind of mushroom and used it in treatment. Now I'm talking about the best of the best. They look at the mushrooms blooming over so many days, and they've tested each day so they know which day is the absolute best day to harvest that mushroom. And they only harvest that mushroom on that day, and that's what they process. That's what they sell. And it's expensive, but the success rate with cancer is almost unbelievable. And what they've noticed is that this particular mushroom, whichever one it is, actually goes in and looks inside the body. And if it sees a cell that's non-functioning, it tags it. And your immune system is driving by and says, hey, there's one over there. And they just go grab it. And so from a cancer perspective, this mushroom, it's about $1,000 for about a 30-day treatment. Certainly worth looking into, even from a prophylactic perspective if you don't have anything. But it's a really, really good option. So if you're in a cancer treatment right now for something, or you know someone who is, talk to them about doing a little bit of research on mushrooms and the specific kind of cancer they have. A cancer for the brain is not the same as for the lungs, is not the same for the gut. So you have to look at what's there and which one works better for whatever. But it's also being used as an adjunct with chemotherapy, as is fasting in general. They found a 72-hour fast actually works as well in some breast cancer treatments as the actual chemotherapy. So they're using the fasting with the chemotherapy. Now they're using mushrooms with the chemotherapy. Lots and lots of things going on out there. They use it for treating cholesterol, liver and kidney disease, anything with the lungs. It seems to be a very, very good thing to have on hand. Asthma, flu, for example. The mushrooms over time build up your strength, your stamina. It fights fatigue. I want to see if this is the one that I put in there. Yes. Nope. That's not. Well, I had my brain all crushed. Let me go back for a second and wrap up here. But the mushrooms, they help our immune system. They help us in so many different ways. And you have to look at which way to prepare it. So just taking a mushroom and just sticking it in your mouth and chewing on it, it's almost indigestible. It has to be treated by sauteing or some other method to help get the actual benefit, the nutrients out of it. Some mushrooms are what they call adaptogens. If you need something increased in your body, they'll increase it. If you need something lowered in your body, they lower it. I can't say enough for mushrooms. It's one of those things I do not live a day without a mushroom of some sort. So that's just my personal perspective on life. Micro workouts. What in the world is that? This is a place for you to sweat on the days you can't go to the gym. Now, an Australian expert in this area says that typically between 18 and 60 years of age, we should be doing about 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise a week, 75 minutes of vigorous exercise a week. Unless you're a gym rat or unless you're really addicted to exercise, that's pretty almost not going to happen. But micro workouts can happen during the commercial on TV. They can happen when you're walking from one place to another. It's something that can be measured in seconds, 20 seconds at a time, 60 seconds at a time, choosing going upstairs rather than using the elevator. They did a 20-second sprint attack where they put people on a bicycle, and they had them go just as fast as they could for 20 seconds. 3 times a day, 3 times a week. They found out in 3 weeks, they actually had almost a 10% increase in their fitness. Due to that, it. So do something that causes your heart to beat is better than doing nothing. Okay, wrapping things up here rapidly. Let's see what our next topic is. This is almost too much to get into, but I think we're going to anyway because I can wrap things up next. Plant-based foods and drinks. We've had this around for a while. You know, the soy became our veggie burger and all sorts of things, but Whole Foods is seeing a major consumer shift here within literally the last 2 years, and they're ramping up for 2024 and on. People are having more and more of an awareness for processed foods in their health, a lot of issues with weight gain, a lot of issues with disease, and so people are looking for alternatives. What's something natural out there? Cacao, it's amazing how much that just one little chocolate bean is just expanding in all sorts of different directions. Buckwheat is one that's anti-inflammatory, has no gluten, and again, it's something that is really being blown out of all proportion. We're looking at plant-based beef to have plant-based fish. Lots of things out there that you would think, what's a plant-based fish? A vegan, whatever. There's just a lot of things that are permeating our food industry. A lot of things with sustainability. They want to conserve our water. So they're looking for foods that we can minimize that level of growing with regard to watering and everything. The increased use of spices, if we can take something that's fairly bland and add a dimension to it. Converting existing foods. Maybe you have something, some noodles, I can't even think of what they are right now. But there are a lot of existing foods that, with just a little bit of tweaking, you can make them exceptional as far as a meal goes. If you're looking for something, people are now looking for fewer and fewer ingredients on their labels. Our typical American food, 25 items on it. You look at the same thing from a European perspective, 5. So a lot of difference there. I am going to conclude here with B12 deficiency because that's a really good place to end up today. So let's just go ahead on down to where I have the end of this program. And I'm going to pick one book, and that's Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging. There's two things that cause us to age. I talk about them in the book. They're easy to control. If there's something that you have with regard to age-related disease and aging in general, that's a good source for you. So redolaughlin.com or Amazon and look up Red O'Laughlin. That being said, thank you for joining me today on the USA Global TV Radio Network in participation with the E360 Network. Thank you.
This program has been brought to you in part by Zane Carson Carruth, etiquette and protocol expert, international award-winning author, television show host, and philanthropist. Thank you to Zane, our official diamond sponsor for USA Global TV and Radio in partnership with E360 TV. Zane is the author of The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever, as well as many other children's books. She's also the television host of Elegance, Polished Demeanor, and Posh Living, seen on USA Global TV and Radio.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Abella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book Abella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Abella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
To learn more about Zane, contact her through her website, zanecarruth.com, ZANECARRUTH.com. Order Zane's books and merchandise. Contact her about being a keynote speaker at your next event.
Hello, welcome, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of our viewers around the world, and a special welcome to our viewers in E360 TV. A very warm welcome to our viewers watching on the live broadcast and also on the replay. Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. My name is Caroline Heward and known as the Harley Street Stress Expert. Our show today is Talking Heads, and I'm an expert presenter in today's topic, which is separation harder than divorce? And it's part of the Mind and Body Connection series. So let's begin. I'm going to start off with a quote by David White. And this will really set the scene for our topic today. You will always love the person if you're sensible, but you get a lot of people, especially in divorces and separations, doing a lot of damage to themselves because they can't figure out how they actually still love this person, but not in their original way. David White. This is a really integral part of this conversation, because when you get married, when you decide to be with somebody and you take your vows, especially if you've got married to them, then you never really plan for having a divorce or a separation. And you are getting married or entering into that relationship because this is the person that you want to spend forever with. So we don't enter into the conversation and the experience with the end in mind. So is separation harder than divorce? Well, all sorts of words come up: custody, marriage, the ending, children, and relocation, or dissolving a relationship that was, court, lawyers, and it all can be quite overwhelming when really something's happened in terms of the emotion of that relationship. Something's happened in terms of the way that you both connect or disconnect with each other. And so there is a process when things stop working to move forward into a new life, a different life without the person. And in the same time as that these things come up that you have to consider and think about, it can be very overwhelming. It can be very, there's a word that comes to mind straight away now, and it's called discombobulating. And essentially it's where you feel that it's all too much. It can put you in overwhelm, and it can take you off your ground and the way that you would normally operate. And it will take you out of an experience of feeling in control, because there's so many other things to think about when you are in that relationship and not feeling that you want to stay in it. So separation sometimes is the precursor to deciding whether you're going to divorce. And it's the first place that most people will enter into in a conversation, not only with themselves, but with their partner. And the reason for that is because sometimes people feel that if you have some time apart, it will give you time to consider, to work out, to have space to decide whether it is right for you to stay in that relationship or not. And sometimes the very opportunity of saying it's not working for me anymore, I'm not happy anymore, and I want to leave, can be a huge weight off your shoulder. But at the same time, it can leave you feeling, whoa, overwhelmed at what next? What do I do? And sometimes it's so overwhelmingly painful because you're leaving what you knew, what you know, and even though it's not comfortable, you're leaving something that is uncomfortable, and at the same time not knowing what's on the other side of that place of being uncomfortable. Because there's all sorts of things to consider, especially if you have children, and especially if you've got property together, if you have a house together, assets together. All of these things come into the equation of making a decision: separation, divorce. Divorce is very final. It's the place where you're saying, that's it, no more, I'm done. And then when you get to that place, there is all the considerations of what a divorce means. So sometimes separation can be the softer option before you take those bigger, gigantic steps in terms of making it a legal separation, in terms of a divorce. So there are many mitigating experiences and circumstances that will make you decide whether separation or divorce. There is no easy way to answer this, because what we're going to handle and look at is the emotions as well as the practical stuff behind whether separation or divorce. Let's look at some stages of separation. The first stage of separation is very like a bereavement, where somebody physically passes away, and that's denial, because nobody wants to admit that it's not working anymore, that it's all fallen apart, and nobody wants to admit that they're not happy anymore, because it's not what you entered into. You didn't enter into a relationship looking at the end in mind. So there is a denial. And certainly when my marriage was really not working for a number of years, I was in a huge amount of external denial because I didn't want to look silly. I didn't want to look like I had failed. And this is one of the things that comes up for many people, that sometimes it will look good to the external world and to friends and family, but internally, you know it's not working. So denial is the first stage of moving towards a place of separation. From that denial, anger comes up, because you know you didn't enter into this experience of this relationship to separate, to finish it. You entered into it for much more positive reasons of love, of spending your time together and your life together. So you can sometimes feel very angry about the fact that it's not what you wanted. It's not the experience that you signed up for. And when you move through that anger, it leads into a space of feeling empty, a feeling that your cup is just not full anymore, which moves into a place of depression, a shutdown of feelings and emotions, because when things aren't working and it's hard and it's difficult, we tend to shut down the feelings and emotions because it's hard, it's difficult to feel. And so you move into a place of depression. And then the final stage of separation, and we're not talking about divorce here, is accepting the fact it's over, accepting the fact that there is no way forward for you or your partner to move forward and stay in that relationship. And when you get to that place, and it can take whatever time it can take 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, it can take 10 years, 5 years. It depends on you as a person and the couple and what there is in terms of collateral damage. Because if there are children involved, many couples, whether they're married or living together for a long period of time, many, many years, there is a situation where some people will stay together because of the children. I have no axe to grind if people do that. The challenge that happens is the children then start to feel an experience of what not to stay or get married for. Because if the parents are always arguing with each other and there is an atmosphere and there is obviously a non-love or an unlove and a hurt within the relationship, this is what the children start to grow up with and recognize as marriage. And certainly that will create in their lives a challenge in terms of moving forward to decide to be in a relationship of any description. So ending your relationship, separation or divorce. So we're looking at the main aspects of why you would choose a separation versus divorce, and what are the implications of both. For both separation and divorce, there is closure. There is a way of ending the hurt, a way of ending what's not working. And so closure is a very grown-up way of moving forward. It's a very grown-up way of saying, hey, we looked at this, we had a go, we gave it our best shot. This is not working. Because when you're together in a relationship, sometimes people will have an external experience of how they're being and showing up in the world. And then they also have an internal representation of how they show up with themselves and in their own home and domain and in their relationship. So there might be the life and soul of the party externally, but internally they might be quite an introvert. And so when you meet the person from the perspective of that social environment and meeting somebody in that neutral place of not being and living with them, then you might be seeing and experiencing a very different person to the one that you end up in a relationship with, that you end up living with. And so if it's not what you signed up to, then it's very challenging for many to close it or to say, hey, I got that wrong. This isn't what I thought it was. This isn't what I signed up to. And that takes a lot of courage to say, this isn't what I wanted. This isn't working for me. And when you do utter those words, it's not working, it then takes you into the stage of closure, of moving forward out of the relationship that stopped working for you. And there isn't a right or wrong here. There is only what's right for you as the person, and saying, this is not working, I'm not happy, therefore I want to make it end so that I feel happier in myself and in my life. This is where the feelings come in. In either separation or divorce, there are feelings that have to be dealt with. And if you are going through a divorce, in a divorce situation, it is less about the feelings and more about the practicals. It's more about, I always liken a divorce to a balance sheet. It is the inputs and outputs, the debits and credits, and it's the balance sheet of the marriage. And I think that it's a very interesting way to look at it, because that's what the courts do. They separate it all out. Who has the dog, who has the access, when they have the access, and obviously the assets and liabilities, and who pays what, and who pays the bills, and then it's all agreed in some form of a legal memorandum, depending on what country that you come from. And feelings aren't in that legal bit. They are in the experience of leaving the relationship and what it brings up for you. And it's important to express how you feel, because it is quite a cold experience to go through a divorce. But it is a finality. It gives you a finality of absolute closure. Whereas a separation will still have some hanging fruit for you to work through, because a separation is also a way that you can move back into the relationship if you choose. And sometimes some people choose to stay in a separation for long periods of time without having to get a divorce, because they feel comfortable not to have to go through the legalities of sorting things out. Either way, whether you separate or divorce, you still have to consider the financial implications, especially if it's a long-term separation, because you've left the family home or you've not left the family home. One person might leave the family home, or indeed you might both choose to stay together in the family home and then have all hell break loose, because it's very hard to stay with somebody in the same home and experiencing the same experiences of hurt and pain. So what is the best? It's very dependent on you. We're all individuals, and I have known of some couples that have separated and yet still share the same home. Although that's very challenging, I do hear for some friends that I have that it seems to be working for them, and they seem to be able to find a way of moving on, because the finances are difficult for them to continue in a separate way in terms of family home, and so they tend to stay together. It's, I feel, very challenging for the man to move out of the home, because usually, especially if there's children, the law, especially in the UK, is very much along the side of making sure that the woman and her children are looked after. And usually the woman and her children have the right to stay in the family home. And then that leaves a situation for the man to have to still fund the family bills and the maintenance for the children, as well as finding accommodation for himself. So it depends on ending your relationship, separation, or divorce. It depends on your personal circumstances, which is why I've been going through some of the practical things of what can come up before you decide whether separation or divorce is the right way for you. And whether it's harder, because when there are children involved, it's hard whether you're in a legal marriage or whether you are in a relationship that you've been in for a long time. If you've been with somebody for like 5, 10, 15, 20 years, sometimes it's a revelation to come out of that situation and decide that you don't want to be there anymore. And sometimes it's very challenging to look at how life can be possible without being in that relationship, even though it wasn't working and you were very unhappy. I've heard people say that the challenge of staying in a relationship that doesn't work changes them. It changes their personality. It changes their outlook on life, and it changes the way they feel. They almost shut down and become disconnected and move into what I would call a habit. They move into a place where they're going through the motions without the emotion and just moving through their daily lives without actually experiencing life, almost like you're existing rather than experiencing the joys that life brings to you. And nobody wants to live like that, and yet at times this is the only way that's possible. When there are children involved or when the finances are difficult, sometimes people opt for this type of relationship, of living and existing, because it's easier. And usually that is surrounded by fear. Now, fear is a root chakra saboteur. I mean, fear is false evidence appearing real. And when the person can't imagine what it's like on the other side of the upset, of the hurt, of the demise they feel themselves in, they stay in that experience until they have the courage to move through it and find an alternative way forward that is without the relationship. And of course, this leads us very on to a place of healing, whether you stay in the marriage, the relationship, or whether you decide to leave through separation or divorce. There has to be a place for healing. There has to be a place for your personal healing, for the relationship healing, and also for the healing of the trauma that came out of the situation of being in that relationship. Sometimes we think we should be with someone forever because that's what we sign up to. There isn't, for some, a forever or a happy ending. And even though in fairy tales they always talk about happy ever after, or this is my lifetime partner, sometimes it doesn't work. And that doesn't make you wrong. That makes you strong. That makes you brave to face up to the fact that sometimes there is a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's okay if you get to the point of the end, because there is life after separation and after divorce. And it depends on the implications that's right for you. And everybody's story is personal. There is no right and wrong. I know many people that have gone through very acrimonious divorces, and I know many people that have done really well through mediation, and I've been one of those people, even though it was very challenging, because the mediation wasn't about the feelings and emotions. It was really about the practicals, about the balance sheet. And I found it really conflicting for me because I had no idea a divorce was a balance sheet. It was inputs, outputs, and it was a disclosure. It was a complete disclosure of the finances and a complete disclosure of the paperwork. Now, that might be different in different countries, but certainly in England, that's what I experienced, and it took the emotion out of it. And when we went through that practical space, and I got the decree absolute through, it felt like a revival of me, of moving forward. I actually had a divorce party, rather than, sort of feeling all melancholy, which is, I know, very American. So there is no rights and wrongs here. There is a healing journey, whether you decide to stay in a state of separation or you decide to end everything legally with a divorce. There is no right and wrong for anyone. There is a personal circumstance and what's right for you. A separation might be the answer and divorce might be your answer, but you're the one that decides. There isn't anyone else that can make that decision for you. But when you are in that place of deciding to separate, to move out of the family home, or indeed to end that relationship that is known to you, that is comfortable for you, that even through the uncomfortableness and the hurt of that separation and or divorce, what happens is a place of, what will I do differently next time? What have I learned from this experience? Who am I? What am I doing here? What do I want out of life? And in that place of separation and divorce, of literally leaving that relationship, it can be the making of you rather than the breaking of you. It can be where you can explore your true self and the true meaning of who you were meant to be in this world and who you were meant to be with. Because when you're in a relationship that doesn't work, it takes a lot of strength and courage to say, I need to end this and move into something else. And the first relationship is with self. That's the very first relationship that anyone should be entering into. And that relationship with self extends to the other person. Here's a quote by Laura Wasser. Once you do embark upon the separation or divorce process, it is very important to remember three key things. Be kind, be reasonable, be brief. Remember that this person will no longer be your spouse, but he or she will continue to be your co-parent, family member, and perhaps business partner in certain assets or entities. I feel that this is an extraordinary piece of advice to leave you with. Be kind. One of the things that I did was I killed my ex-husband, or my soon-to-be ex-husband at that point, with kindness. And that kindness that I gave to him, I actually gave to myself, even though it was a very challenging situation to be in. I felt that in giving kindness and compassion to him, I actually was feeding myself and I was healing myself through the pain, even though it was a challenging experience. The anger, the resentment, the lack of empathy and understanding of the fact that it had ended was my healing journey, as well as my then husband's healing journey. And so consider it's a personal healing journey. Thank you for your attention and your interest. Please subscribe to USA Global TV and Radio. You can find all of our Talking Heads episodes under the playlist Talking Heads 2022 for last year and 2022 for this year. You'll find all of my Talking Heads episodes under my name, Caroline Heward. Please do reach out to me if I may be of service to you. You can contact me on nomorestress@live.co.uk, or indeed you can call me on +44 if you're international, 7523 if you're local, 07523 120 189. I offer a free 30-minute Zoom, Skype, Messenger, audio, video consultation. It will help you find some order, because the first place you have to start is a place of inner healing. The first relationship is self, and everything else expands from that. It has been my absolute pleasure to deliver this, which is not the end, it's the beginning of your exploration. I offer more insights in other programs and other broadcasts that I do. Thank you so much. It has been my absolute pleasure. Namaste.